Hello friends, welcome to UGCE PG program. I am Dr. N. Binara Devi from Department of Geography, Sahid Bhagat Singh Evening College, University of Delhi. Today, we are going to discuss on management of radiologicals, nuclear and biological disaster. India has traditionally been vulnerable to natural disaster on account of its unique geoclimatic conditions. On the other hand, the country is equally vulnerable to various man-made disasters including radiologicals and nuclear emergency. In recent years, the significant growth in application of nuclear science and technologies in the field of power generations, medicine, industry, agriculture, research and defense has led to an increase in the risk of occurrence of nuclear and radiological emergency. Nuclear and radiological emergency situation may arise in a nuclear facility at a plant levels leading to onset or offset emergency depending upon the extent of its impact on the surroundings. It may also take place while using radiation sources either at hospital, industries, agriculture or research institutions due to loss or misplacement or due to faulty handling. The other events that can lead to nuclear or radiological emergency in the public domains include accidents of a vehicle carrying radioactives or nuclear materials due to an orphan source, that is, the source which is not under regulatory control, or due to uses of radiation source, that is, radiation sources or radioactive materials in malevolent activities. Any radiation incident resulting in or having a potential to result in explosions or contamination of the workers or the public in excess of the respective permissible limit can lead to a nuclear radiological emergency. The main reasons for any nuclear disaster is the extraordinary release of radioactive materials or radiations either in the operations of nuclear reactors or other nuclear events like explosive of a radiological dispersal device, that is RDD, or improved nuclear device, that is IND, or explosives of nuclear weapons. It is accompanied with sudden release of harmful radiations or radiological materials or both together in the environment. Sad memories of the use of nuclear weapons dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan in August 1945, and the wide publicity given to the reactors accidents at 3 Mile Islands in 1979 in USA and Chernobyl in elsewhere USSR in 1986 has strongly influenced the public perception of any nuclear or radiological emergency to be most often linked. However, one must be prepared to face nuclear or radiological emergency of lower magnitudes and ensure that the impact of such an emergency, which for a given magnitude is likely to be much greater today because of higher population density coupled with an enhanced urban infrastructure due to economic prosperity, is always kept under control. It may be noted that better infrastructures can be helpful during such incidents in terms of enhanced communications, transport and medical support. Now, let us understand the Indian perspective on radiologicals and nuclear emergency. For improving the quality of life in society, India has embarked upon a large program of using nuclear energy for generating electricity. In India, 20 plus power reactors and research reactors in operations along with 5 power reactors. It is also planned to explore setting up thorium-based reactors to meet its ever-increasing energy needs. Further, the country utilizes radioisotopes in a variety of applications in the non-power sectors by industry, agriculture, medicine, research, etc. Due to the inherent safety cultures, the best safety practices and standards followed in these applications and effective regulations by the Atomic Energy Regulatory Board, the radiations those to which the persons working in nuclear or radioactive facility are exposed to is well within the permissible limit and the risk of its impact on the public domains is very low. However, nuclear emergency can still arise due to factors beyond the control of the operating agency, that is, human error, system failures, earthquake, cyclone, flood, etc. Such failures, even though of very low probability, may lead to an onset or off-site emergency. To combat this, a number of system upgrades have been planned to mitigate or prevent such emergency. However, proper emergency preparedness plan must be in place so that there is minimum avoidable loss of life, livelihood, property and impact on the environment. Further, the radioactive releases due to any reasons can be devastating. Chernobyl is a classic example to understand with modern reactors design a catastrophic release of radioactive catastrophic release of radiations is highly unlikely, but there may be possibilities. This can happen due to factors beyond the control of the operating agency, that is human error, system failures, earthquake, cyclone, flood and tsunami, etc. Emergency preparedness for nuclear power plant. Since the proper implementations of countermeasures can significantly reduce the consequence of an emergency situation, it is mandatory for all nuclear facilities that there must be a comprehensive emergency preparedness plan. Prior to the issuance of a license for the operations of a nuclear facility, the Atomic Energy Regulatory Board ensured that the facility has the emergency response manuals for the three main types of emergency: by plan, on-site and off-site, and the plans are in place to handle these types of emergency. The operators of nuclear facility must make an assessment of the type and quantum of release of radioactivity under various accident conditions and the extent to which it can spread into the environment. Plan emergency. When the radiological consequences of an abnormal situation are expected to remain conform to the plan boundary or a section of the plan, it is described as a plan emergency. Nuclear facility in the country already have the following provisions for the detections, classification, notification and mitigation of any emergency situations. Number 1, emergency operating procedures for the assessment of an emergency condition and its mitigations. Pre-identification of facility-specific abnormal situations for classification of a plan and site emergency. Number 3, facility-specific approved nuclear emergency response plan specifying the job of all the functionaries who have been assigned role during the emergency. 4, alerting the plant personnel by sounding the emergency siren and making an emergency announcement. 5th, adequate means for communicating and notifications to emergency response organization at the facility, the district and state authority, CMG of DAE and the central government authorities. 6, identify assembly locations for plant personnel and casual visitors for their accounting and assessment of persons trapped in the radiological areas. Next, formation of rescue teams and activation of a treatment area and discontamination center. Number 8, radiation survey around the plant and outside the plant and site boundaries. Number 9, assessment of wind speed, wind directions and affected sector around the nuclear facility. Number 10, whenever required, the nuclear facility is able to mobilize the service of the ambulance and paramedical staff at its site. 11, equipment and materials for handling a nuclear emergency are kept at the designated place of the nuclear facility and ERC, that is emergency response centers. On-site emergency and accidental release of radioactivities or the potential of the release of activities extending beyond the plant but conform to the site boundary constitute on-site emergency conditions. In addition to all the provisions applicable in the plant emergency, the following additional provisions are ensured. Number 1, extensive radiological survey for an assessment of the radiological conditions within the site boundary of the nuclear facility. Number 2, suitable prophylaxis to be made available at all the assembly areas for the administrations to plant personnel in case the situation demands. Identification of temporary shelters within the facility or site for shifting plant personnel in case required. Number 4, provision of the fleet of vehicles for evacuations of plant personnel from the site to a separate place. Number 5, provision of fixed and portable contaminations monitors to check contaminated personnel vehicle leaving the site. Number 6, on seeing the potential of release of radioactivities which can transgress into the public domains, the concerned district authorities are alerted to be on standby by emergency operations in the public domains. Number 7. Radiological monitoring of the environments in the EPZ, 16 km radius around the plant of site emergency, or recognizing the potential for an uncontrolled release of radioactivities into the public domains, the concerned district authorities are alerted to be on standby for emergency response operations. In addition to all the provisions applicable in plant emergency and site emergency, the following additional provisions are to be ensured for handling a nuclear emergency in the public domains. 1. Pre-identification of plant conditions which can lead to an emergency to the public domain. Number 2. An assessment of the radiological status at the site boundary and in the public domains. For handling of an off-site emergency condition in nuclear plant, an off-site emergency committee is handled by the district magistrates of the concerned district and supported by the district subcommittee, which include chief of all public service department relevant to emergency management to the district and also the head of the site emergency committee of the nuclear facility for technical advice. The committee takes decisions pertaining to the handling of a nuclear emergency outside the site boundary and ensure implementation of countermeasures such as settling, prophylaxis and evacuations and resettlement, including maintenance of law and order and civil amenities. All the activities pertaining to the handling of an off-site emergency are guided and coordinated from a pre-designated emergency response center located outside the boundary of the nuclear facility. The Information and Broadcasting Department of the district, in association with an authorized information officers, ensure the smooth flow of information to the media to avoid panic and spreading of rumors. Preparedness at nuclear facility. The probability of a major accident at nuclear facility leading to the release of large quantities of radioactivities into the environment is always ensured to be negligibly small. However, even the event of a major release in the environment, the prompt and effective implementation of countermeasures can reduce the radiological consequences of the public and the environment. Preparedness for nuclear radiological emergency. The handling of nuclear emergency requires coordinations among different service group of nuclear facility. In the event of potential radiological consequences in the public domains, all the authorities at the 3 levels, that is district, state and center, would play a vital role and assist the off-site officials in effectively responding to and keeping the public informed on the precautions to be taken. Major responsibility of nuclear power plant operations. This includes the arrangement required to promptly classify, mitigate the emergency, notify and recommend protective sector of all the sites consistent with international guidelines, protect those on site, obtain off-site assistance, conduct environmental monitoring of the affected area and assist off-site officials in keeping the public informed. Major responsibility of off-site officials. This includes the arrangement required to promptly implement protective actions and countermeasures in the affected area. Nodal agency, Department of Atomic Energy, that is DAE, is the nodal agency for providing the necessary technical input to the national or local authority for responding to any nuclear or radiological emergency. The Ministry of Home Affairs, that is MHA, is the nodal ministry to coordinate with the various response agencies in the event of any nuclear or radiological disaster in the public domain. A crisis management group, that is CMG, has been functioning since 1987 at Department of Atomic Energy for this purpose. This group is chaired by the Additional Secretary, Department of Atomic Energy, and has on board expert members from different units of Department of Atomic Energy and Atomic Energy Regulatory Board. Each member has an alternate member, and crisis management group is backed by rescue agency of various units of Department of Atomic Energy. Biological disaster. Biological disasters are the situations involving disease, disability, or death on a large scale among humans, animals, and plants due to toxic or disease caused by live organisms or their product. Such disaster may be natural in the form of epidemics or epidemics of existing, emerging, or re-emerging diseases and pestilence or man-made by the intentional use of disease-causing agents in biological warfare. Operation or incidents of bioterrorism. Biological disasters are causative or purpose. Phenomena of organic or phenomena or organic origins or conveyed by biological vectors, including exposures to pathogenic microorganisms, toxic and bioactive substances that may cause loss of life, injury, illness, or other health impact, properties, damage, loss of livelihoods and services, social and economic disruptions, or environmental damage. Examples of biological disasters include the outbreak of epidemic disease, plant or animals, contagions, insect or other animals, plague and infestation. Biological disaster may be in the form of epidemic affecting a disproportionately large number of individuals within a population's community or regions at the same time. Example being cholera, plague, Japanese encephalitis in India. The Gorakhpur and other regions are affecting due to the same drastically acute encephalitis syndromes. Or pandemic is an epidemic that spread across large regions, that is a continent or even worldwide of existing, emerging or re-emerging the disease and pestilence. Example, swine flu. Causes of biological disaster. Biological disasters are caused by the epidemics, accidental release of virulent microorganisms or bioterrorism with the use of biological agents such as anthrax, smallpox, etc. The mature association of war, pestilence and famine was acknowledged and often attributed to divine influences through a few new observers released that some infections were contagious. The development of bacteriology and epidemiology later established the chain of infections. Along with nuclear and chemical agents, which are derived from technology, biological agents have been accepted as an agents of mass destruction capable of generating comparable disaster. Epidemics can result in heavy mortalities in the short term, leading to the depletion of populations with a corresponding drop in economic activity. Example, the plague epidemics in Europe during the Middle Ages or the Spanish influenza between 1977 to 1988. Infections like tuberculosis might not kill in the short terms but thrust nations towards social economic disasters. Another example is the human immunodeficiency virus or acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, epidemics in sub-Saharan Africa that has whipped out the benefit of improved health care and disseminated the productive segments of the society, leading to economic stagnation and recession. In recent decades, India has also experienced the footprint of biological disaster incidents in some parts. The outbreak of plague in Surat, the outbreak of plague in Surat, which was relatively small, disrupted under activity in the city, generated an exodus and led to a massive economic fallout. The ongoing human immunodeficiency virus or acute immunodeficiency syndrome epidemic in different parts of the country is leading to the divergence of subsistence resources, the spread of invasive with pathogens Heterophoros after its accidental introduction into India has had wide repercussions on human and animal health. Apart from depleting the folders of output, infectious agents are constantly evolving, often requiring enhanced virulence or epidemic potentials. This results in normally mild infections becoming serious, The outbreak of chikungunya that started in 2005 is one such example. In recent times, traveling has become easier. More and more people are traveling all over the world, which exposes the whole world to epidemics. As our society is in a state of flux, novel pathogens emerge to pose challenges not only at the point of primary contact but in far remote locations. The increased interactions between human and animals has increased the possibility of zoonotic diseases emerging into epidemic form. Theoretically, any humans, animals or plant pathogens can cause an epidemic or may be used as biological weapon. The deliberate intentions or actions to cause harm define a biological attack. Biological weapons are particularly attractive to terrorists group because of ease of productions and low cost. They have been termed as poor man's nuclear bomb since it is estimated that a large-scale operations may lead to huge tangible and intangible losses across the globe. Release of biological agents has not been successfully used by terrorists in India or surrounding until now, but in the event of any successful attempt, there will be severe disruptions of governmental services and psychological mass reactions which will jeopardize normal life and create fear to the community. Mitigation measures. The assistance protections against natural and artificial outbreak of disease, that is bioterrorism, will include the development of mechanisms for prompt detection of incipient outbreak, isolation of the infected persons and the peoples they may have been in contact with, and mobilization of investigations and therapeutics countermeasures. In the course of deliberately generated outbreak, that is bioterrorism, the spectrum of the possible pathogens is narrow. Why? Natural outbreak can have a wide range of organisms. The mechanisms required, however, to face both can be similar if the service providers are adequately sensitized. Most of the outbreaks epidemics reported in India are due to waterborne diseases, vector-borne diseases and basic preventable diseases. Why? National Vector-Borne Diseases Control Program is the key program for prevention or control of outbreak of epidemics of malaria, dengue, chikungunya, etc. Vaccine administered under UIA or EPI reduce the morbidity and mortality due to the diseases like measles, diphtheria, pertussis, poliomyelitis, etc. Availability of safe water and adoption of the personal and domestic hygienic practices are important measures to prevent or control epidemics of waterborne diseases like cholera, viral hepatitis, etc. Nodal agency. The response to these challenges is coordinated by the nodal Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, with input from the Ministry of Agriculture for agents affecting animals and crops. Further, the support and input of other ministries like Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of Defence, Ministry of Railways, Ministry of Labour and Employment have their own medical care infrastructures with capability of casualty evacuations and treatments, and treatments have important role to play. With a proper surveillance mechanism and response system in place, epidemics can be detected at the beginning stage of their outbreak and control. Slowly evolving epidemics do not cause upheavals in society and will not come under the crisis management scenario usually. There may be specific situations when disaster response mechanisms may be invoked. That is, falciparous malaria erupting after an exceptionally wet season in a previously non-epidemic regions and epidemics occurring has a consequence of an attack of bioterrorism. In India, Ministry of India and Family Welfare is instrumented and responsible for implementation of various programs on a national scale in the areas of prevention and control of major communicable disease and promotion of traditional and indigenous system of medicines. This ministry also assists state in preventing and controlling the spread of seasonal disease, outbreaks and epidemics through technical assistance. It is actively involved in disease diagnosis during epidemics and outbreaks, operational research, manpower development, advisory role and other multifarious activities towards prevention and control of a cascade of epidemics-prone disease of large public health importance in collaboration with National Center for Disease Control and extraneous organization and institute. National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program is a key program for prevention or control of outbreak epidemics of malaria, dengue, chikungunya, etc. Vaccine administered to reduce the morbidity and mortality due to the disease like measles, diphtheria, pertussis, poliomyelitis, etc. The key measures to prevent or control epidemics of waterborne disease like cholera, viral hepatitis, etc. include making available safe waters and ensuring personal and domestic hygienic practices are adopted. It is important to always prevent epidemics, but its impact can always be mitigated by anticipating them and preparedness measures. Epidemics preparedness and response is a multi-sectoral and multi-agency activities. Health sector play a lead role in preparing and educating the epidemics preparedness plan, but need the expertise and support of other disciplines or sector also. Planning process with inter alia require extensive review of health infrastructures, disease surveillance and response system, availability of laboratories and trained professionals, drug, vaccines and equipments in the countries, communication system, coordinating mechanisms between different sectors and between the national and international agency and legal issue. Accordingly, Government of India launched Integrated Disease Surveillance Project in 2004 to strengthen capacity at state or district level to detect and respond to the epidemics in early rising phase. Under the project, the district and state have been strengthened by providing additional technical manpower like epidemiologists, microbiologists, and entomologists trained by training of rapid response systems for outbreak investigations and control, strategies of laboratories for detection of organisms causing epidemics-prone diseases, and establishment of IT network for data compilations, disseminations and analysis. The states are at varying stages of implementations. The biological disease or outbreak or epidemics in India are usually investigated by the district or state rapid response teams. Several centers or regional institutes like National Center for Disease Control, National Institute of Virology in Delhi, National Institute of Cholera and Enteric Disease in Pune, Vector Control Research Center in Kolkata, Pondicherry and other ICMR institutes provide epidemiological laboratory and entomological support to the state for investigation and control when the outbreaks or epidemics are widespread and state requests for assistance. It is a fact that epidemics do not respect national border. As international travel is easy, biological agents need to be tracked so that they do not enter new regions across the boundaries. This aspect has made international collaborations crucial for epidemics control. International organizations like the World Health Organization, Food and Agricultural Organizations, OIE, as well as some national agencies with global reach. There is Center for Disease Control and Prevention. United States of America have an important role to play and cooperation with them is necessary. Response mechanisms. To deal with any kind of biologicals, radiologicals, nuclear emergency situation in India, there are 12 NDRF battalions which are placed in all zones of the country. All the battalions have specialized teams equipped with modern devices to address the biologicals, radiological, nuclear emergency. In addition, states also have the well-trained SDRF teams in 2000 states of India. The NDRF and SDRF may respond to any such emergency 24/7. Further, a national emergency number 1078 is also available for any kind of assistance, including the biologicals, radiologicals, nuclear accidents or disaster. Thank you.